Imagine applying for 1,200 jobs in 3 months and getting rejected even after working for the biggest tech companies.
I think I still have the sheet, and I think I stopped at like 1,250 or something.
Joking. Meet Roina, currently working as an engineering manager with a phenomenal background in product.
Can you introduce yourself to her?
Oh, you're going way too deep. Actually, I'm out. Just give me my stuff. Give me my stuff.
From being job hunted, dropping out of school, and landing into Google I/O San Francisco, but discovering her worth beyond her work.
In that darkness of it all, I got told by Google that I have like a full sponsorship to go for Google I/O in San Francisco.
In this episode, Roina opens up about layoffs, doubt, survival, and what it really means to detach your self-worth from your career. This isn't a career story. It's a story about being human.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you.
Thank you.
Roina, I have a picture here.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to say hi to her.
Oh my. What? Whoa. Where the hell did you get this? This is what? Like, this is not the picture I was even expecting to see.
So I want you to say hi to her.
Oh my goodness.
And tell her about where you are now.
Whoa, this is a curveball. Whoa. Okay, I would say, what? I can't even recall. I'm so mind blown. I'm first of all, I'm trying to figure out where the heck you got this picture. I'm like, what in the CIA? What in the CIA, FBI, DCI resulted in this? This is the research. Kevin, is this you? Did you do this, Kevin? Anyway, and I catch you. I would say, hey, you are 19?
Yeah.
You are 19 or something. Trying to figure out where this whole thing called life is going. But the most important part of the whole story is figuring out who you are. Yes. And it's not a smooth path ahead, but it's pretty fun. Yeah.
Can you introduce yourself to her? Right.
Oh, you're going way too deep. Actually, I'm out. Just give me my stuff. Give me my stuff. I'm out. Whoa. You are like, you're killing me. You're killing me. I would say, hey Roina, this is 30-year-old Roina from the future. And, you know, there's still so much to learn then, and there's still so much to learn now. And so the whole path is just continuing to learn yourself and accepting your evolution. You're now a senior PM, by the way. No, you're an engineering manager.
Come on.
Wild.
Come on.
Yeah. And you work with a pretty great team. And you live in a really nice place.
Come on.
And you're surrounded by really nice people. So maybe it all actually works out.
Wow.
Yeah, this picture is insane. Like, why did I used to dress like this? Why the scarf?
Put it up here, guys.
Like, why the scarf on top of the t-shirt, on top of the cardigan?
She's cute, right?
I was having like a hair evolution moment. I was like, I'm not going to chemical my hair anymore. I'm just going to let it grow out. And it was a rough. It was a rough transition. Yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah, that's crazy that you found that picture. Yeah, that's so nostalgic.
Now, Roina, timestamp us through your journey very briefly from this point up until today.
Oh, from that point up until today. All right, so that picture is from, I guess, circa maybe 2018, actually 2013. So this was just after high school. I was in the middle of figuring out what course I was actually going to do. And there was a program called the Teen Entrepreneurship Summit that was being hosted by other students who are in, I guess, Africa Leadership Academy, ALA in South Africa. So they came in and put up an entrepreneurship summit for teens to learn what it would actually take to, build a business or come up with a business. So everything from like problem statements, business modeling, and all of that. So I found out about that, I guess from Strath, because I was doing Strathmore diploma in business and IT. So I was in Loreto Convent Valley Road, which I loved my high school experience, best high school experience ever, and got very curious about like different things. As much as my dad was in software, I really wanted to know what was out there. So I started off with the diploma as we were waiting for the results, and then Strath has this thing where you can transfer credit. So if you do a diploma in business and IT, you can join like a bachelor's in informatics on second year after you've done the diploma. Yeah, so I dived into that, and I think I did this summit around that point. Yeah. Still trying to figure out if am I doing business related stuff or am I doing IT related stuff or am I doing like a BBIT, which is a mix of both, or am I getting more specialized into tech? So certain events like those made it very clear to me that I want to lean onto more tech related solutions. Yeah.
I'm gonna pause you there. When you say you lean into tech, do you feel like it's natural or it was the world is moving this direction?
I think it was more natural because it was the thing that used to spark my curiosity the most. Yeah. I remember first being introduced to computers with my dad having this office computer, this old Dell office computer that he used to be in accounting. So I used to see the spreadsheet thing a lot, but occasionally he'd let me play pinball. I don't know if you remember that pinball app. So I used to, it's shouting. So I used to play that pinball app and I used to wonder, like, how is this button making that thing happen like that? So it was a natural curiosity. And then that's when my dad would tell me, okay, like these keys are sending like a signal, like just like a phone into a part of this computer, and it's telling that thing in there to do that. So I was like, oh, okay, so there's some sort of process in there. And then over time, starting to, watch a lot of like documentaries with my dad about like how stuff works. And so I was always curious about stuff that looks seemingly simple to the eye. What are like the background processes? So, and same even with like organizations, like you see the pilot, but how do they find the pilot? Like how does the pilot get in here? Like how does he know how to fly this plane? Does he know how to fly all the planes? I always used to be those children who got into trouble for asking why a lot. Always, because like our culture is sometimes that asking why is considered some sort of like disrespect or something. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I was always naturally the why kind of person.
That's very interesting because most people tell you follow your passion, but what you're saying is lean into what
you're curious about.
Curiosity. Yeah. Very interesting. Then once you realize this is tech that I want, you went to do a bachelor's in computer science. Yes. Okay. Take us through that.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting for me. Initially, the course I was doing was called informatics. You could look at the course content for a specific bachelor's and think you understand what's actually going to be imparted in the classroom. But then once you actually start doing the course on a day-to-day, then sometimes you identify gaps. For me, my experience in uni came with also being in the community, so in the developer community. So while I was in first year, I already got into like Google developer groups because I think I figured that I learned by doing, and I was not going to be interested in what I was doing unless there was somewhere I could like actually practice it. And so Google developer groups became that space to actually where people were trying to build apps and build actual software. But then it created this sort of of dissonance for me, because whatever the principles we were learning in class and the high level tech we were learning in class were not the same considerations I would have when actually interacting with the communities and building actual software. So by the time I was in second year, it was becoming very clear to me that there's some sort of there's a distance between what's actually happening in the ecosystem, and then you still start meeting developers who are actually in the industry, and you realize, oh, okay, there's maybe 2 years worth of knowledge here that I don't that I've already gotten, but I didn't necessarily require to understand to build the software. Yeah.
So at this point, are you thinking, I want to be a dev?
Yeah, at this point, I'm actually fixed on becoming an Android dev.
Wow.
Yeah, I was very fixed on becoming an Android dev. And at that point, technologies were evolving very fast because Flutter was coming in as a framework for UI, but it was just a concept that Google was pioneering. And I got to interface with it because they were sending us as GDGs resources to try and teach our communities and get adoption for people to start playing around with Flutter. And then Kotlin was also coming up, and because I had gotten so good at JVM and Java for mobile that when Kotlin came in, it was kind of oh, okay, so now these are frameworks now that could make this process 90 times faster. But things were evolving really, really fast. And you're also doing school, where you guys are learning C++ and SQL. Yeah. And then you have now keeping up with whatever is going on in the industry and getting the knowledge enough to be able to teach the community of people and get people interested and hold meetups and bring in even more experienced people to speak there. So I was a busy bee around that point.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I was in the media group. I think as the president of the media group, I was not even doing any media related courses, but I had done the school newspaper in high school. So I just started the school newspaper, and my high school was very supportive. So when I told one of my teachers I wanted to do the school newspaper, they went and spoke to the computer school, the computer teacher, to give me access to the computer. Then I would bring in my friends. It started off as an informational newspaper, then it became like a gossip blog. We used to report everything: who fell down in class, how many times the most notorious people who got detention. And the school used to allow us to go and read the news in front of the parade and post the newspaper in all of the notice boards. And people were excited for Fridays to go and see this edition of Sisemi Kitu. It was called Sisemi Kitu. Yeah.
Group of school guys.
Oh my God. It was called Sisemi Kitu. I think I still have a copy of it somewhere. So I still had that interest with some level of journalism, or putting out news up there, creating exposure for stuff. So I was doing media, I was doing the GDG stuff, and I was doing school. And and then I'm also a firstborn, so there's also home. So I don't even know. I look at how much I am more relaxed and indoors now, and I'm I exhausted it all during that phase.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you tell, how important is that, quote unquote, I like to call it KUJITUMA kerehere? How important is that? And what would you tell someone who the environment is not necessarily approving of that? Because like you said, African culture is kona kerere more, doing too much. What would you tell a person who's in that situation watching this?
I mean, I think it's really, really important to, I say this a lot, to pick a struggle, right? We can't paint everyone with the same brush, right? For me, KUJITUMA created a lot of difficulties for me at home because yes, my parents were why don't you just focus on your schoolwork? You're doing way too much, right? And it was more of considering my relationship with my parents and how much I respect their opinion of what I'm doing. I felt more of a drive to try and tell myself I have done my best with the opportunity I have been given. And that's something I think I decided from around the age of 17, to make those moments worth it and to make things work. So I'm also the kind of person, if there's a problem here and I can do something about it, I will do something about it, despite whether people think it's a smart thing or a dumb thing to do. If I feel called to do it, I will actually do it. And so I picked that struggle very, very young. And when you have that conversation with yourself and you tell yourself, yes, I'm willing to endure the difficulties that come with the decision I have made to be this kind of person, then it stops feeling like so much of a sacrifice every single time. So the KUJITUMA stops becoming an expectation you have of yourself, and it just becomes who you actually are. And when those difficulties come up and you feel like, oh, why am I jitumaing more than my friends? Or why am I jitumaing and people are asking me why I'm doing the most? Once you've made that mental decision and you truly believe in it, then it becomes simpler to get through those challenges. But I would say at that age, I did not know that was probably the peak of my mental performance, but the peak of my physical health and the peak of my energy. That at that point, you think that that's just how life is going to be. That's who you are. Yeah. But then like looking back, that was my optimum. Like I could catch concepts the fastest. Like I'm not that old, but there's definitely been a mental drop to be able to get new concepts or change your approach on things. You become more rigid with time, is my experience right now with aging. And so I'm glad I jitumaed the way I did, because I also had more resilience to fail at that point. There was not too much to lose. You know, like, yes, maybe I could put all my energy in this GDG thing, and then Google would say, nah. Yeah, we're closing this thing, and nobody would ever know what GDG was, right? And I think I thought about that sometimes, and I was just like, yeah, but for now, it's actually helping me learn. I'm meeting some pretty cool people. I'm enjoying this events organization thing. So even if it doesn't work out, and this doesn't mean anything on my CV in the future, it was fun while it lasted. Like while it was happening, it was a great time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you dropped out.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my God.
This follows you, this question.
What? Sure. I feel like if my dad watches this, he'll be like, I've been telling her for years to finish this course. Dad, continued this GDG thing and actually started getting opportunities from it, meeting people who needed like short-term freelancers to do some design or like to do some back-end work in Java. And, you know, at that point, I think that freelancer website was becoming a thing and people were looking for much, much cheaper freelancers in Kenya. So there was a little bit of a boost. So you could get a couple of $100 here and there for doing like bits of work or collaborating to like a repo. And then there was also, I think they still do it, there's like a Google Summer of Code, which is this, I don't know if it still exists, but organizations would put out projects that they wanted to be open source, and students would apply for Google Summer of Code and try and contribute to those repos and actually get paid to contributing to those repos. So I never made it to the Google Summer of Code, but I used to like contributing to those things and seeing how people are structuring their repos, learning a lot about like code management and collaboration tools and stuff. So I started getting very into that. So sometimes I would be in like lectures doing the work because I'm just like, oh, I could make like $300 here.
In campus?
Yeah, like this is like third year.
So you did not necessarily have a broke campus experience?
And it wasn't like, I would have liked to just have the parents who give you pocket money. But at some point my parents, but my parents were also, now I have siblings and life is changing and I also don't want to feel like a burden. So I just was like, hey, what I need to tete, man. Like, let me tete myself. And so those jobs, I would do that stuff during class. And then at some point, my grandma fell sick, and I just towards the tail end of my campus life, my grandma fell ill and unfortunately passed on at that point. And me and her were pretty close. I was like the first grandchild. Yeah, so that happened, and then in that darkness of it all, I got told by Google that I have like a full sponsorship to go for Google I/O in San Francisco. I don't know where the idea came from, but I was like, if I'm going to get a visa to the US and I'm going to get accommodation for a week, and I can actually define the return date for my flight, because I did ask them. I just told them, hey, I know the accommodation is during the conference, but can I extend my flight because it's within my visa? And I decided to extend my flight by a couple of months. I think, it was a couple of months. So the conference was going to be just a week long, and then I was going to give my shot at being in SF, which is like the center of it all. This is Silicon Valley. Yeah.
You have a plan what you're going to do?
I did have a very, very strict plan, because my dad is so methodological. So I had a spreadsheet of things I would be doing almost day to day, events I would be attending, boot camps. Yeah. So when they tell you way in advance, they tell you maybe like 3 months before the date, because of the visa processing. Yeah. So I started looking for boot camps, female-only boot camps, and there were so many free female-only boot camps within the city there. And these were like people who work at Google, IBM, and they were the facilitators of these events. And so I applied for one, I got accepted for one that was going to last like almost 8 to 9 weeks.
Wow.
And then I also stayed with a couple of founders, some African founders who are at Y Combinator. A friend of mine introduced me to them, and I got to stay with them for a little bit and see, okay, what does it look like to be in Y Combinator? Yeah, I traveled a bit and went to like the wine countries and whatever, and it was a really great experience. And before time, I also had been, making applications to Uber and Google and all this, just to see would I be able to get into an interview. And it was pretty wild to like have actually gotten to go and do interviews at Uber and at Facebook. It was cool, learning and everything. And then also it was my first time like really being on my own. Like you're out there, you're in a whole other country, there's a time zone. Even if something happened to you, like what are the chances you could call your dad and he could help? Yeah. So you could like, you are pretty aware that, this is real life. Yeah. And so I got that sense of independence, planning yourself. It also opened my eyes a lot to, even within our tech ecosystem, the importance of the diversity and inclusion conversation. Was it in some of those spaces actually experiencing being a minority was something.
Wow.
Yeah, like if you've been here in Kenya and maybe you've never worked in a more global environment with people from different countries, you're rarely going to be confronted by the stark reality of what it looks like to be like a racial minority or like a gender minority. There will be other people in your organizations who are women, but then going for an interview and you're like the only lady, there's something it opens your mind to. Yeah, and then you actually realize, okay, so this is an actual dynamic. This is an actual thing.
Let me stop you there. So you are at SF. Your accommodation is catered for during those 3 months, or?
No, so I had to find a hostel. I think I stayed at some hostel called Adelaide, and I guess it was like $18 per day. Yeah. So still doing some freelance jobs. My parents are also sending me some money. My uncle, I think, supported to some extent during that time also. And the hostel was cool because there was like a washing machine and there was like free unlimited noodles. So girl, I ate noodles. I think after San Francisco, I did not eat cup noodles or any sort of noodles for like years. It was like noodles with ketchup, noodles with just noodles with butter. Like, yeah.
Okay, so I'm getting a sense of an abundance mindset when you say, let me see how I can interview at Uber or there's there's a techie watching this in JQuat who's thinking, guy, me, can I ever interview at Google or Microsoft? It seems so far-fetched. I'm curious where this abundance mindset comes from. Would you say it's your exposure? Help me understand.
I wouldn't say, like, I think now in retrospect it seems like an abundance mindset, but it was very much also coming from like survival mode, right? Like being being like a firstborn, being an only child for quite some time, I feel like I got an awareness of what the world looks like very early. And for me, I grew up with the narrative that there's probably not enough opportunities for all of us. I remember being young and looking at like maybe a street kid and being like, what's the difference between that kid and me? Like, why am I here in a school uniform and this kid is sleeping on the streets? Like, what are the dynamics that are making him there? And having those kind of questions. So to some extent, I was like, do everything possible to make sure that you have the best possible chances of escaping it, because it's a majority of people. Like you start to realize, hey, you're actually privileged. Yeah. Like the school you're going to, that is, you talk to people and they're like, oh wow, your school sounds great. Yeah. And then you realize, oh, like I'm just lucky. Lucky. So for me, it was, how do I increase, what do I need to do on top of the luck? Because the luck can only get you so far. Yeah, so I need to do something. I need to do something different. I need to go harder to some extent. Like I need to hustle a little bit more.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I was very afraid of, like, I felt like there was an equation that you would have to fulfill to be able to get yourself into a position where you're like ahead. Mm-hmm. And that was always even a conversation, a philosophy in our household. Like, you do need to put in a little bit extra. Mm. If you read the same like everyone, like you're just going to be there with everyone. So what do you need to do more? So even in high school, it was like on top of just passing exams, I wasn't an A student. I was like a B minus, B, just a B minus, B plus. That was where I was. But you know what I did? I had sports. I did swimming, I did hockey at some point. I tried tennis a little bit. And I was always like, hey, maybe I could excel at this thing and get like a sports scholarship or something. Maybe I'll enter this essay writing competition and see if that can be something I add on top of my scores. Because I'm clearly not the smartest person in the room. I'm clearly not like, I had like my friends who are like A's from day one. And those were like my good friends. And I was like, hey, I'm striving, man. Like me, I'm studying. Hata nafanya tuition. Like, I'm in school on Saturdays doing chem. Na bado, it's like I'm just dreaming about it. It's so elusive. So I was like, hey, I need to compensate a little bit. Like, I need to do something else. Yeah. So I don't have the A. So I could have the B plus. Yeah. And the certificate. Okay. So perhaps. Do
you still believe that's true?
Oh, no, I'm completely disillusioned. Like now I think I have a hyper awareness of all of the systems that come into place for a percentage of the population to have limited amount of opportunities to actually make it out of the block. Like now I have I'm even hyper aware of all of the systems that be, Okay.
Help me understand, what is your current belief? Because previously you're like, as the manager to me. Right now, what do you believe that's different?
I think now more than ever, and it could even end up looking maybe a little bit radical. I do believe that there is a crazy part that classism plays in everything, right? Like this illusion of the harder you work, the more chances you are to be successful is something that was a belief system I had in my youth, but I don't think that that's necessarily really true. For example, you would have to start off your life at a specific economic footing for you to even achieve literacy. Literacy, which is just a common thing that you're required to work hard towards to get into this chain. So just the visualization here is we're all in an open field and there's a road somewhere in this open field. For you to even have an awareness that there's a road, you have to have access to the information that there's a road. For me, that's literacy. Okay. And there's some people who are in the field and they do not even understand where to start in terms of like reading and writing. And that's very dictated by your economic background. It's dictated by your geography. Your geography dictates your economic background. Your religious beliefs dictate your economic background. Like they are all interconnected, right? So there are even opportunities that you would not access, that would not even seem attainable to you if you were born in a specific part of the world. Like if you were born in a country that women can't drive, you would not even be able to aspire to. So there's so many things that come into you even being aware of opportunities that can get you off the block, right? So there's that. My belief system is that that's on purpose. That whole system is on purpose, that there has to be a majority of people who are willing to give cheap enough labor to industries for this whole economy to keep running. If we said like only 15% of the population was that cheap, accessible labor, then that would mean that everybody outside that 15% would have a different perspective of what the minimum quality of life would be. For example, like the middle class, the minimum quality of life includes having water, food, safety, healthcare, right? But for a big chunk of the human population, the bare minimum is just food.
Correct.
And just drinking water. No hygiene, no sanitation, right? So if only those guys had those problems and the rest of us were like upper middle class, I don't think that would be enough to keep that economy running. You need a majority of people who are employed, who are only able to achieve a specific salary cap, who would be able to offer this labor with the market cost to feed these industries, to feed these profitability metrics that all of these big organizations have. So I'm more thinking of stuff on a globalist perspective, not thinking about like the micro factors that actually build up to people not being able to have access to certain opportunities and achieve wealth. I'm more thinking of like the global setup that leads people like us in Africa to just have a very limited cap of how far we can reach. That's why we rejoice so much when one of us becomes a billionaire, because for us it's just like, what? There's gonna be one. There's gonna be 1 in 100 of us. There's going to be 1 over 100 in us. And I think with the internet, things have seemed to be more achievable. But like, I do think that there's a ruling class. I do think that the ruling class benefits from a majority of the population on earth being poor. And I do think that there's so many things that suppress the populations and suppress these countries to being able to achieve US status or economic growth that would make a difference in like on a household level. So I'm more sadistic now. I'm more pessimistic now
wow,
about
that is so interesting.
Yeah, I'm more pessimistic now about stuff, honestly. And I wish I wasn't. Yeah.
What does that mean then for the dreamer that's sitting in their bedsitter in KU?
I don't think I'm like the motivational speaker you guys need right now.
There's something you said that most things don't serve as advice, they serve as perspective. Yes. And for me, this is perspective. I think the more you become aware of how big this thing is, the more you start to focus on the factors that you can control, right? I think we waste a lot of time striving to be like other people who we think have had the same circumstances that we have had and made it. You know, like I think we spend a lot of time hyperfixating on feeling inspired and feeling uplifted by people's stories, when the real tea is all of those smaller decisions you make on a day-to-day to position yourself. I think we are like, oh, if this person could do it and they came from here, and I can do the same thing, or I can do it even better. So we keep looking outward when we need to be looking more inward. When the real tea is,
if you are in a community, you have to ask yourself how you're serving your immediate community. Like, why are we striving so far beyond? We feel like our impact will be on a global level if we work on a global company, right? We feel like if we go on a global level, then that will be impact. But if you look beyond that global impact you think you can do, you end up hitting the same ceiling. There's some things about the world, about the human race that you cannot change. There's a lot you cannot do as an individual person. There's ideologies you can put out there. You can inspire people, fair, right? But there's a lot about even individual freedom that you cannot influence, right? And when you realize that, when you've tried to inspire people, when you've gotten on the global companies and worked on a product that has 500,000 daily users, and you realize, oh, that's just a drop in the ocean of this whole company. And then you even think, if I became the CEO of this company, there's still stuff I can't influence. And even if I became the president of the US, there's still stuff I can't change. Then I feel like you realize that there's always going to be a ceiling. And sometimes that ceiling is to make you reflect on the things that you actually can control. So I've come from striving to achieve those outwards accomplishments and have like a global scale of impact, and just now focusing on having impact on like my immediate circle, my immediate community, my immediate needs, myself. And that gives me like way so much peace, instead of like, we're addicted to inspiration.
I was really holding myself from saying Finya.
You were just like, say it.
So I hear you. But this KU student is thinking, if I focus on my community, money is more important than we'd like it to be. How am I going to get this money? Like, it's great that, you get to a point where it's like, this matters more. But right now, does this create that financial success?
Yeah, that's like a real reality right there. Like, I think for me, that getting to that thought process is as a result of like being on that top part of self-actualization, right? When there is so many layers of just survival to get through. I would say, the intention is also really, really important, right? For example, if you wake up in the morning and you're expecting, we were just talking about working out, right? Like, you're expecting to perform like an athlete when you're not an athlete. You will always break your own heart. You always break your own heart, right? So if your intention is very stuck on a specific number or a specific salary you need to make day to day, and it's not stuck in terms of like the smaller incremental progresses you might make before you get there, then there's going to be so many disappointments along the road. So I would say like setting smaller actualization goals would be the best thing to do at that stage. I've been at that stage where it was like, I have so many demands that I need to meet, even in regards to my family, and I do not have the capacity to meet those financial demands. I would never start to think that, oh my God, my life is going to feel so much better. My life, and even budget, at the way when I start making 100K, then this and this and this and this and this will be solved. No, it's more about like, okay, I'm making 25K now. Where do I get the next 5K? So that it's 30K next month. Where do I make the next 6K? And then just thinking about those smaller incremental goals. It's harder in our tech ecosystem because we're probably chasing like salary bands. Right? We're chasing salary bands, and we invest so much energy in figuring out how the system in your company or the system with your manager works so that you can just move up to the next salary band. I would say there's more to think about outside that salary band, and that's where you can open up your perspective to opportunities that have nothing to do with work. So I'd say like we hyperfixate on, when I'm PM2, I will be making 350K. So let me put all I have to get into PM2. when you could be very content with learning the lessons and all the challenges you are in PM1 and create opportunities outside to feed into that income or feed into that experience. And that's something I think I would have done differently in my career.
So take me through how you do it practically. So PM1.
Yeah.
And I'm PM1 also. I'm like, I need to get to 350K. Then what would you have done differently?
So like, for example, I had, when I was in uni, I had applied to Microsoft a couple of times. Every time there was an opening to do with like developer relations or developer advocacy, I really, really wanted to get into those roles. And I kept getting rejections. Who would have known that years later I was actually going to get in? When I got to that job, it was like a dream job for me. And I was like, okay, I'm on a track. I'm on a system now that is very well managed, that is metric based, I know I will not be outworked, because I know I trust myself in my ability to deliver results. So I get in there and like my whole life becomes that. It becomes being in Microsoft and trying to do as best as I can so that I can, qualify for the next tier, right? I feel like at that moment, being in Microsoft and learning the things I was learning, instead of like doubling down to scramble to get up to PM2 or senior PM, I feel like I would have savored the connections in the organization a lot more. I feel like I could have had a very great foundation to set up some sort of consultancy, product consultancy at that stage. And I feel like I could have contributed more in terms of like the Microsoft culture and all the smart people I was around, instead of just locking in on these are the expectations of PM2 and I just need to like be on my manager and impress her and fill in all of these check marks, because that's how like 2 years went by. That's how 2 years went by. And I had the experience where I felt like I was meeting all of the deliverables, but I just didn't mesh with my manager, with my new manager. And then the experience became unbearable and I didn't stay there for as long as I thought I was going to. But then now looking back, I'm like, oh, I was in such a strategic moment to do so much more, but I was so stuck on this grind situation. And I think even for the KU student, like people do put in a lot of effort into becoming that first class honors student and thinking that that distinction, that best in class thing is going to be the one thing that puts them out there. Yeah, but like it's the being involved in community even without the intention of wanting to be, for making it a metric, those connections you make there, that ability to be able to just learn a new language, like those are added experiences that could provide even more value. So it's fine to be streamlined on one goal. I think for some people it works out, but I'm more of like savor the entire experience. Yeah, like some of this, and what I was saying about like systems that are rigged against you, we could a whole class of 100 people could get a distinction if we could all put our minds into it and all of that, and we all get a distinction. But like, where does the dissonance with getting jobs come in? Yeah. Like, how do we make sense of the fact that Roina didn't finish uni and got a job immediately? And somebody who got a distinction in a very high demand field is still out there in the looking for jobs. So you can tell these whatever we thought, which was like the effort and the passing, is not necessarily resulting to the actual outcomes. Yeah, if the person who worked the hardest would make the most money, so it would have been them Django guys. Under the sun, carrying the So there's so many different dynamics that come in there, and I think all in all, it boils down to that one thing I said before. When you decide who you want to be and you decide how your life is supposed to be set up and how you would feel great daily, and you start working towards that instead of these goals, the salary goal, the next house you need to live in goal. I think it's important to know that, but like there's so many people who go so far without knowing how they want to live that life, the things they want to be doing daily, the way they want to feel daily in a job, the way they want to feel daily in a relationship. And if you've not figured that out, it's so easy to say, I just want to get married at 30. Bora nimemarika 30. But like this whole time you've been hyperfixating about being married at that stage. Have you figured out how you want to feel in that marriage? How you want that dynamic to be? You haven't thought through all of that. You fixate about getting into Microsoft, but did you ever fixate about how you want that whole experience to feel for you emotionally, mentally, physically? And so when you make certain moves in your career, people are like, hey, why did you leave that company? See, it's coming from, it's not aligned with how I wanted to feel at that time. It's not aligned to how I wanted to live my life. It's not aligned with who I am.
So how did you get your first job?
Wow. Okay, so see the GDG stuff from uni. I went to San Francisco. I came back. I'd been applying for jobs while I was there. I did not do my exams, of course, but then I came back to Nairobi and like the reality hit me that, okay, I really need to figure out what to do because people have graduated and stuff has happened and life needs to move on. So I kept applying for jobs. I had not gotten any leads yet, but then Google also gave me another opportunity to go to Lagos to speak to developer community advocates across like Africa on like how I'd managed to grow the community in Strath by like 10x. And then I had started doing GDG Nairobi for the whole of Nairobi. And we just held the DevFest, this annual DevFest, and it had like 10,000 people there. So it was like, hey, how did you plan the event? What are some of the things that kept your community engaged? How did you scale the community? So made a deck, flew out to Lagos. And while I was giving that talk, Sally and Graham from Africa Stalking were in the audience, and they listened to my talk all the way and how I was leading the community. And after my talk, they approached me and they were like, hey, we're really looking for somebody who has experience building these campus communities, building communities in Nairobi, in sub-Saharan Africa, and like the insights you shared are so relevant with what we're trying to do with Africa Stalking. And so I think Sally gave me her card and emailed me like that same evening and told me to, when I'm back in Nairobi, to come over to the Africa Stalking offices. And I actually did not know that I was going to like meet the team. I knew I was going to meet Sally and Graham, but then I walked into Africa Stalking and there was a guy in dreadlocks and it was Sam and he was the CEO, and I did not know that he was the CEO until I Googled the company after the interview. And it was just banter. It was just a very bantery kind of conversation, and they asked me for like my salary expectations, and I was like, I did the dance that we always do. What's the budget? Yeah, so did the dance, and they were just like, okay, like, but what would be a comfortable price? Like, honestly, just name a price. And I was just like, 150K? And then I just put it out there, and then I went home, and then I talked to my dad, who's been a career advisor to me, and he was like, yeah, you shoot there, and then you negotiate. You just start the conversation, like, and if they do give you what you asked for, don't beat yourself up for not asking for more, because at the end of the day, you really still need to prove your value. You need to prove your value, and you're starting from a comfortable place. So, and then they emailed me and they asked me when I was actually during the interview, they asked me when I was available to start, and I didn't have anything booked up. I was still doing a few freelance things, and this was like on January 4th, and then I started on like January 8th or something.
What?
Yeah.
How did you come up with the figure? Because you're straight out of school. Straight out of school.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the figure? Because most people would go low.
Okay, so one thing that helped was I'd done a bunch of interviews. I was very, very interested in that developer advocacy, being a DevRel and everything. So based off of the interviews and the price ranges I was getting from other roles, I kind of ballparked it there. I did not expect to be doing developer relations for a Kenyan company at that point. I think Africa Stalking was one of the companies that was really trying to engage campus students and build this kind of like developer conversion pipeline to equip them with skills that could allow them to use these APIs to build solutions. And then it was such an interesting model to me. Instead of traditional enterprise sales, train these people to use your tool so that when they innovate and build little startups and little solutions in dev shops and on their own in campus, they're using your communications API, and you're sending a couple of SMSs, and you're setting up some USSDs. So I was very interested in that model, and also just building a way to know how to monetize, like what does the conversion funnel look like, what is the expense of this, and how does it actually bring in commercial value for the organization.
You were thinking like that?
Yeah, of course.
Wow,
I think
that's impressive.
Yeah, I was really thinking about it because at the end of the day, like having seen my parents run a business, I really realized that it's about revenue and profit and loss, right? It's really about how much we spend versus how much we make. And even like with organizing events and stuff, like I would never have wanted to do another DevRel if the value that Google told me they derived from that was not making sense on like a monetary level. Like if they're spending $10,000, like what do we have to show for in terms of signups, in terms of this? So I always knew there would have to be some performance metrics that are coming in from the role we're doing, but also it was finally seeing people actually using the solution in very interesting ways that kept me also thinking of different use cases we could expand towards. Yeah.
For someone who does not understand what DevRel is, please tell us a bit about DevRel and if it's relevant today.
I think DevRel is still relevant today. I'm a little bit out of touch with what the journey looks like, but developer relations is a wing of, it's a functional role within an organization where you have a developer relations manager who crafts experiences and roadmaps for specifically developers who are using developer tools, right? So you could have a desktop app or something that is extremely tailored to any generic user, but you could have a tool like a CLI, which is like a command line interface, or an API, which is just a piece of software you can use to integrate databases and data between two different systems. And these have specific users. Like someone who's a PM is not likely to use an API. Someone who's a business manager is not likely to use a CLI. So there's that persona of a developer who is using a very specific technical tool to achieve something within their role. And so you have these developer relation managers who tailor the experiences for the developers and use those experiences to drive business value. In an organization like Microsoft, if you're in DevRel, you're having meetups and you're having community calls where you have people who are developers come in and give critique about the tool. You encourage them to use the tool. You show them use cases in which the tool can be used. And then you expect that they'll have a good experience with that tool and advocate, because developer communities rely very heavily on like referrals and ratings and how other developers think their tools, their documentation and such work. So you create a positive community of developers who can advocate about your tool to other developers. And so the developer relations manager is somebody who does that. So you'll find them doing meetups, you'll find them doing talks during other community calls to show different ways people can use different tools together. You'll have them doing partnerships with other tools. Then you'll also have them maybe even building, which was what I was doing in Africa's Talking, building pipelines to even recruit talent into the company. So I'm doing these meetups, I'm meeting really cool devs, and I'm kind of picking from the community people who can actually come in and contribute to the actual tool. Yeah, and it's the same with Microsoft. Like you would find community calls, and some of those community contributors would become contributors to the actual tool.
So you started off on a very good note, salary.
Which is just pretty lucky, because at that point the company was trying to scale, and a huge part of that scaling roadmap was my department.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you left. Take us through your journey up until now.
With Africa's Talking, I was in developer relations, but our role really also included us converting users or giving feedback to developers on what the developers are saying they want improvements on. So started getting introduced to how those pipelines would work, like how do we get this feature request from a developer into the development team, like what level of details do we need to spec this stuff from, and how do we need to present the value of these specific features to the business so that they can invest in us, so we can have more devs happy, right? So to some extent, I did not know that that was product, but then the org hired a very experienced product manager from an organization called Meltwater, and he'd done years, like more than 20 years in product. And I started seeing how he was structuring stuff. We had a lot of conversations because now I was part of his funnel. He was getting feedback on the tools from me, and so started being more and more involved in what that process looks like, and got curious, and also got like very interested, and also got like some sort of like mentorship relationship with Kevin Lawrence, and we worked very briefly together at Africa's Talking before he moved to Sandy as the CPO. And after he moved to Sandy and he was setting up the product department, he was like, hey, I think you know pretty much, you know quite a bit about how to do product now. Why don't you come scale up here? So then I went to Sandy, but because I have some experience in software development from like my uni days, then developer relations, and working specifically with engineers, because we used to have to write like technical documentation, use the APIs, build some apps to use the APIs with and stuff. I was still very close to engineering. I've remained very close to engineering in my career. So I went in as a PM for the core and infrastructure team. So all the back-end stuff that was running the app. So the location services and how we've structured our code base so that we can build more features. So I came in to do a rewrite of the existing backend infrastructure, to build a roadmap for a rewrite so that they can add more features, so that the other feature teams can add features onto this backend. And the way it had initially been built was not scalable. It was very difficult and very expensive to add new stuff. So I came in and like built a roadmap on how we were going to rewrite different components, did a little bit of hiring, did a little bit of testing, and then we were finally able to scale to, I guess, more than 250K daily users.
Wow.
Yeah, the goal was to have that level of usage without the performance or the reliability of the app decreasing. Yeah.
Interesting. So if I'm a PM and I'm like kind of torn on which skills I should lean into. Like, should I be more technical? Should I be more business? How would you support this? What would you tell this PM?
I think there's, again, I don't want to sound too philosophical, but I think things are way easier when you lean into your natural strengths. I think knowing your natural strengths and leaning towards where your natural strengths are is a really powerful thing, right? Like if you're just an organically good communicator, you need to identify ways to use your strength to get yourself ahead with your role or to get yourself into a role. So I think that personal strength identification is really important, but then also some people choose to approach their careers based off of specific organizations they want to work at, right? I think over time you start to shortlist the kind of organization you feel would meet your needs in terms of like culture, salary, workload, and all of that. And so if you do have that those organizations already kind of like mapped out, it's prudent or even just obvious to see where the opportunities are, right? Like, so if you're hell-bent on working for that org, then you need to figure out what skills are, what openings there are, or what the scope of specific roles look like in that organization. And then now you need to play for those strengths. Like at Microsoft, my role at Microsoft, it was pretty much leaning very heavily on the technical side also, because it was developer tools, right? But then if I wanted to position myself there in the business side, there was definitely skills I would have had to learn around like data visualizations, etc. And that would have pretty much been determined by what that JD looks like. So if I was like, I want to work for this team in this country and to this level, I have to become very familiar with that JD and know what skills I need to invest in to do that or something similar in another org. Yeah.
I'm super impressed by you because you are like an excellent communicator. You're very
Thank you.
And you also have the technical strength.
Thank you.
So it is extremely impressive.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Now, talk to PMs, just regular PMs like myself, very, very curious because you have worked with really good teams and done really good stuff. How do I'm just a regular PM doing my normal backlog sprints. How do I start thinking like a senior PM around scalability and kind of business unit of economics, all that jazz? How do I start thinking like a senior PM?
I think there's a general mindset that needs to be put in place. Like we say, growth mindset in the sense of continuously learning and growing and adapting to feedback. But growth mindset also involves identifying opportunities to add value. I think there's 2 tiers of functioning as a PM or as any role in the organization. One is your role in your JD, and 2 is what you uniquely bring into that team, right? And I think people started saying that, there's a lot of hires? Personality hires, right? And the reason why there was an influx of personality hires is I think that human resources and people departments understand that there is value in specific personalities being positioned into the team, right? Specific characters being positioned in a team. And sometimes there are productivity boosters. There's somebody who is in that team who, when we're feeling stuck, like they will do the plumbing and the stuff will start flowing again. So there's identifying what you bring into the team on a personality level, and it doesn't even need to be like, who you are as a person. This is kind of like my role, and we fall into those roles organically, right? PMs tend to end up becoming the doers or those plumbers, the ones who push the stuff along. It's expected of our role. But if you don't have the personality type to get people together, understand how different people function and how their own functionings could be holding things together, then that's something that you might have a difficult time with when you're managing a bigger team or you're managing different expectations, right? So that would be something you would have to work on deliberately, because it's a job expectation, but maybe you don't have the personality strength to rally people together like that. So you need to identify areas that you can add value in with your communication style, your personality, how you carry yourself, the thing you bring to the team that's uniquely you. But also you need to figure out value for the business, right? Like you need to be nimble. Sometimes I think getting into senior PMing, you could feel sometimes like you're dipping your fingers in all of the baskets, right? Like you have to know everything about everything that's going on within the organization. It doesn't come from control or pestering or anything like that. It comes from identifying areas that you can add value into the organization, right? So I think increasing your scope of awareness of stuff that's happening in the organization, like creating time to catch up with people from different departments, can allow you to position you and your team and your product to add value in areas that even the business has not identified. Yeah, so there's a level of proactiveness you have to take on that level when you're like a senior PM. And then you also have to really hone relationship building. And relationship building should not be confused with likability or socialization in the workplace. Relationship building is creating a system or a process or an environment where your stakeholders have mutual understanding and respect for the efforts that are going on with the product, right? And that are happy, and you have created a space where they can be very open and responsive about the stuff that's going on with them. So relationship building is semi-transactional, right? Like if you as a PM are working on the customer facing product and the only time you are meeting the head of customer support is when there's a problem, then there's so many insights you lose as a senior PM that could allow you to position that product better. So relationship building is having a cadence with the stakeholders that's not reactive, that allows you to create visibility into your processes as a PM and the development process. And this could be, hey, like just proactively letting you know how we are going along in the roadmap. Are you seeing anything that would change here? I know we committed to this 3-month roadmap. What's going on the ground? And are these things still relevant? And here are different ways we can rework these different features that are coming soon to scratch that itch. So it's kind of like you're in this dance with them, and it's not that they're just holding you accountable to a roadmap. You're doing that proactively. Where it seems like high stakes is when that conversation is only being had when accountability is on the line. Then that becomes like, okay, so see, you are a resource and the company is expecting these things from you. They're expecting this roadmap, and so have you delivered or not? Yes. That's the way it looks like when you don't have a relationship with your stakeholders. Yeah.
I think to you it may seem like a very simple concept, but that's like gold.
No, it really takes quite a lot of time, because sometimes you don't have your product is so big, things are moving so fast, you don't even have the time to talk to these guys. But what you should have the time to do is to do like a monthly wrap up and just say like, hey, here are like all the features we've delivered. We initially thought this was going to take 2 weeks. We underestimated. This is what's happening. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. Here is like a 1-pager questionnaire in case you feel like this feature is not working the way it should be. And you're sending this to the whole team. You're not even just sending it to the head of CS or anything like that. And you're constantly looking for data. You're constantly looking for insights. You're constantly looking for pain points. And you're doing that proactively on a day by day. And you're not making promises, because when you put it in when the process is well defined and the relationship building is well managed, you're not making promises.
I see.
Yeah. You're being very proactive about like, hey, like, but we've reviewed the roadmap. There's no room for that. But what I will make sure to do is communicate this in the next digest as a feature and see whether the organization wants to invest in that. And I will be an advocate for this thing that you've told me is a pain point. So it's extreme product ownership. If anyone's coming to you for a product issue, there's nothing out of your scope. There's nothing too big. Like if they're telling you about a part of the product that's not your own, you're the product manager who follows up with the other product manager and says, hey, there's a thing happening here, and you're following up, and you're proactive about how painful that pain point is. So when you look at a senior PM also moving and you're wondering, oh my God, how are they putting together this roadmap that has stuff to do with business, sales, CS, and whatever? It's as a result of extreme product ownership and very well managed relationship building. It's a lot of knowledge to just walk away from, but it's stuff that's helped also with the EM side.
Where did you learn this, Roina? Like, did you go to product school? Really curious, because at this point, you've gone to Sandy.
Yeah.
You basically learned on the job.
Yes.
Where are you learning? Like,
I like to, when I'm in like organizations, and I think maybe till recently, I like to pick up qualities from people in different functions that I like. Like I go into an organization and I find someone who I think is the best communicator, and I learn a little bit from how they communicate. And then I see how someone presents or how somebody does specific things. And I like to identify people's strengths. It's helped me a lot with people management also, because it's become kind of like a skill where once I meet my teammate, I'll know their strength and their weakness, and I'll always try to leverage their strength as much as possible, even if they don't know that it's their strength. So I've learned so much from the teams I've been in. Sometimes it's people who are even like outside my range of work. Like we'll do like a monthly all hands, and I'll just be attentive enough to see how somebody is presenting this super high level abstract idea. And if it resonates with me, I'll be like, how cool that they were able to explain this thing that's completely irrelevant to me. And I'll try and maybe work on that a little or pick something there. So that's pretty much how I've gone about it. Like with product, just, picking different strengths from different people. And just being like, hey, that how did you know how to put those graphs together in that deck? Because how did you know the right amount of text and how to design the slides? So people tell me I do really good slides, but it's pretty much that. I met somebody at, I think it was at Food for Education.
Yeah.
At some point, who did really good slides. I was always like, wow. Okay, I think I'm going to copy that template. I'm going to figure out why, or I'm going to ask them one day, And he told me that he did a design course at some point, and I was like, I didn't go off and start doing the design course. I was just like, okay, so if you were to give me like 3 elements of a really good slide deck, you'll say, no, like he told me the number of characters that should be on a slide, how to order the visuals, and how to do the flow of the slide. And it's something I still use nowadays when I'm making slides. I just like, I don't need to learn everything, but I can learn a few things from a few people. Yeah.
The thing I'm seeing here is curiosity.
Yes.
You're really leaning into your curiosity.
Yes, always. Yeah.
Hey, now, Sandy, what happened?
Yeah, so Sandy was going okay. However, there was a few changes within the business model that was happening. I really do believe that only the paranoid survive. So, and I like to know people from different departments so that I can know how the company is really doing. Exactly. And so with Sandy, there was a few little red flags. Of course, now we all know Sandy has kind of like gone. And I was also having a few challenges on like, growth management, like what next for me? Like I've already done this, and, what are the next steps? What are the goalposts? And so not having that and feeling and being in this point of still striving and wanting to achieve the next milestone, achieve the next band of salary, I started looking for opportunities. Of course, I wasn't actually at that point, I wasn't actively applying, but a long friend of mine, James Diga, approached me and told me, hey, there's like a PM role here that I think you might be good with, because it's a developer tool. It has a bit of advocacy, but it's also a product, and you'll have to do program management. And so you'll have to manage a bit of all of these things. And I think you'd be good at that. And James has pointed me towards so many opportunities. I'm always grateful for him.
Where did you meet him?
I met James during GDG. James used to attend my GDG events, and he came for my GDG events when I still had like 15 people, and he would just drop in. And so he's followed my career. It's somebody I've worked with in the career, but it was such an organic situation. It was just like, hey, here's a guy. Yeah.
Because there's always the push, network,
Yeah. It has to be organic, I think. I think it has to be somewhat organic. It's intentional in the way you position yourself, the places you want to meet people, because you could network with anyone, anywhere. If you decide to be a social networker, if you decide to be a professional networker, if you decide to be an online networker, it depends on what works for you. But I would say it's so much easier to manage a network that's organic. Yeah, these people know who you are as a person. They know your philosophies on life. You've even been vulnerable enough to tell them the kind of companies and roles you're interested in. So when they do hear about those things, they can be like, oh, okay, there's a chick I know. There's a chick I know. And if they don't think about you immediately, then you kind of know you need a little bit of work to expose your knowledge and the kind of things you're doing. Yeah, I think your network needs to remain informed about your relevant skills and your new learnings are. Yeah.
So putting yourself out there.
Yeah, you have to exercise some sort of like vulnerability, toot your horn a little when it actually matters. Yeah, and show that you're knowledgeable with what you do. And it's not as simple as I completed this online course. It's not that. Sometimes it's a unique opinion or a unique take that you like, hey, I previously thought that this was the best way to do this, but then this is how I do this now. And talking about it, posting something about it, saying something about it, or when you meet people being like, oh yeah, by the way, this is something cool I've been into recently. Sometimes it's even like exposing yourself with your personal interests, So you'll be like, oh, I've just recently gotten back to swimming. And someone will be like, oh, they have never even learned how to swim. Yeah. And then you just form a nice connection with them with no expectations of it leading anywhere. By the way, I feel like the expectations ruin everything. So now I know somebody at Safaricom. Siku moja nikiona role hapo wacha ni make sure nimemfuata LinkedIn. But it's also human. It has to be human. Leave a impression, leave a good, genuine, organic impression, and then just leave it up to the universe to figure that out. If it serves you, it serves you. If it doesn't, you met someone cool.
So he tells you about the role.
He tells me about the role. I apply. I do a bunch of interviews, I guess 4 or 5 interviews spanning across like 2 months.
Did you prepare for these interviews?
I got a bit of insight from James on what's going to happen. As part of the recruitment process, I think they're very open about like, here is how this will go. If you pass this or this and this. And then I did try to reach out to a couple of people I had known at Microsoft, but the roles there are very team specific. So I didn't know anybody in the team that I was going to work with, but I knew kind of what the expectations were. Like I knew what a technical interview was going to be. I also tried to reach out a little bit to people I saw in the teams that were in the team. So I would see my interviewer's name and I'd see people they were in the same team with, and I'd like reach out. Unfortunately, they all responded way too late. But walked in with some confidence. Like, of course, I had to use the tools. Like, I knew this thing was going to be about a couple of tools. So one of the first thing I did was to actually use the tools. And so I think the interviewers appreciate when you're like, hey, I've used the tool and I already have some ideas on it. And I had a weird experience logging into this thing. Is that a common issue? So it also made the conversation very conversational. So if I'm applying for a product, now more than ever, I'm definitely using the product before the interview. I'm using the product. I'm signing up. I'm looking at things I could improve. Even if it's not in my team, I'll show that, I can identify some pain points. I can provide some good insights in there. I can critique a little. I feel like I can contribute. This is something I would do differently.
Wow, that's very, very insightful. At this point, are you like excited my life's about to change, or you're just...
No, actually I knew the hardest part was going to be like the background check. For me, I was so paranoid about not having my degree, but it's something when they give you a background check form that you fill that is with your previous employers and whatever, and I was very explicit during my background check. Even at some point I used to put it on my CV that my degree is incomplete, because I was like, don't get too far with me and then ask me for a degree and we've wasted our time and I don't have a degree. So I would just say Strath from this year to this year incomplete. I just put it out there straight up on my CV.
Did they ask you about it?
They didn't ask me for the degree. I just said I did not complete the course. So they tell you, hey, give us all of this information, and we will cross-check with the resources you've given us. So I gave them the information. I contacted my uni. There's a really awesome lady who was leading the FIT, the Faculty of IT. Her name was Carol. I told her, hey, Carol, I'm expecting a really big win. I've told these guys I don't have a degree. If they ask you for my transcripts, please provide them. But I also gave them the stamped transcripts for the semesters I'd given. I attached them there. And then I said, yeah, my whatever is incomplete. So I gave Strata a heads up. And and then they contacted my previous employers. So I think the background check was the longest part of it, because I think it went on for almost 4 weeks. So the interviews went on for maybe 5 weeks, and then now an additional 4 weeks and something. So almost like 2-3 months just doing the interview process. So really, really like, holding my bum, like just squeezing my butt, hoping that the background check goes well. Yeah. And then when it came in, I was like, okay, great, perfect. Because everybody was super excited for me, because me, I was just like, actually getting into the interview was already a win for me, because I told you I used to apply. I applied so many times. I used to apply in uni. So it was kind of like a full circle moment. But it was in the middle of COVID. It was just when COVID was, I think, towards the end of 2020. So I did all my stuff online. When I went to pick up my machine, they would give you a home setup for your home office. And it was quarantined, and you had to get letters and everything to go and get the stuff. So I didn't get to meet my team was mostly remote, but I didn't get to meet people in the Microsoft team until like maybe 8 months in. So I got onboarded during COVID, joined during COVID and everything. It was a pretty good experience. And then when there was a hybrid, you could work from the office if you want to. And then I used to love going to the office quite a bit, because I get cabin fever. Like, I want to stay home as an option, but not that I have to. Now if I have to, now I'm trapped. So yeah.
You mentioned you left because of what did you use to term it? Was that misalignment with management? Yeah,
100%. So I started off with a specific manager. I have to limit how much I say. Yes. I think I am still under an NDA and a non-disparagement agreement with them as part of my end agreement with them. But yeah, we had a situation with my manager kind of not providing very clear steps on, what's next for my role, what I need to improve on. And we were just not going to be able to work together. And then so we went into a legal thing a little bit, and then they settled, and I moved on to Food for Education.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That sounds heavy.
Wow. It's gonna be online, but it was heavy. It was a lot. And then of course, I had this whole plan of how I was going to be there for the longest time and scale up the ladder. The screeching halt. But overall, besides that experience, besides that last end of the experience, I would say I had a great time at Microsoft. Yeah. And it was also around that time when, you actually have space to start to think about like more life stuff. They have such amazing programs for employee well-being. So at that point, you get time and even resources to work on your mental health, to work on your physical health. So overall, I had a great experience there, except towards the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you moved to Food for Education. Many people, like you mentioned, really tiptoe around employment, try and, fit in. But I get the sense that you, even with the situation, you were still bold to like, this is my space. And did you have any fears about like, what will my future employers think?
Yeah, of course. There's, okay, I mean, because there's an non-disparagement and whatever agreement, I didn't think that my employers were going to find out all of the details of how I ended up leaving Microsoft. So I wasn't paranoid about that. I was mostly paranoid about people thinking I haven't stayed in an organization for more than 2 years. And it's still something that I worry about. It hasn't stopped me from anything. But of course, it's something that interviewers will ask you, like, how come you've just been moving every 2 years? Especially the more senior you get, they want to work with somebody who develops a stronger relationship with the team and is there for like long-term value. They want to invest in your learning and development, and they don't want to invest in you and then you just bounce. Yeah, so I was a bit worried, but I was, and then of course, like my ego was bruised and I was very paranoid. I actually at some point thought I had not been good enough for Microsoft. Yeah, I was like, you wanted to be in this company, you wanted this role, and you just didn't make it. So I internalized a lot of it, and I had to work through detaching my self-worth from my career accomplishments. And I had to stop that self-blame about the whole situation and just see it for what it is. These are corporations, these are organizations that, when they stop seeing value in you, then they have every right to leave you, and no one owes you anything in any of these organizations. So I didn't have a good relationship with my achievements. I felt like, and also a good relationship with external validation, because I was working with extremely smart people and extremely well-qualified people that I actually just thought, you are just not good enough. Yeah, you are just not good enough to cut it through. You are not smart enough. You are not smart enough to navigate that situation. You might be like, why did it have to go into that part of like even legal? Like, what are other changes you would have made? But it was one of those things where you have to just do the work, and you have to have a support system that clarifies the noise. Yes. Yeah, because the worst part about, there's good parts, which is achieving all of these career milestones, but in the longer run, once you start feeling like those milestones are tied to your self-worth, then it becomes a very dangerous situation, because when that job ends, when you're in a company that you don't think is prestigious enough, or that you don't think is like worth you or anything, you can implode. Yeah. You can totally implode. Yeah.
That's really powerful to share, because you are an incredible PM. Like, a lot of people look up to you, and I know. And in a big sense, I really respect what you've done.
Thank you.
So it's very, I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
It also, quote unquote, validates if someone somewhere is doubtful about their own abilities. That you just shared something that, okay. So it's normal.
Yeah, it's super normal. And the fear of not being able to get another role is also extremely normal. Like, even despite all these years of experience with the recent layoff I've gone through, I thought I had gone beyond it. And it was even a more interesting situation, because my support system was reminding me, was the one that really believed, like, you're not going to go more than a month without a job. Like, you're you. Yeah, you're so marketable. Everybody knows you. You have such a huge network. And I was the one person who didn't believe that. And then once you're out of a job for a month, and then you're out of a job for 2 months, then now it's a mental game.
Is it my...
Now it's not you against the jobs. Now it's you against you, because now you've done more than 1,500 applications. You're waking up every morning. You feel guilty sleeping, because you're like, how are you sleeping at the way the job market is crap, and you should be spending every waking moment looking for a job, and you should be spending every waking moment looking at how to optimize your CV, networking, and all of that stuff. But I mean, looking back, maybe I think it was a good time for me to rest, because I'd been working since like 17, 18 there. And so it was time to rest. But I wasted like 2 of those months just freaking out about not believing in my own capabilities to get a job. So despite how good you get, like, I think we've called it imposter syndrome, but I think there's a human it's a human emotion to doubt the process or to doubt the experience you're having. For me, the layoff last year, towards the end of last year, was a reckoning, because it was like, it came in at the worst time. This is when all of the posts you would see online is how the job market has crashed. The tech job market has crashed. AI is taking all the jobs. Everything has crashed. Like, there's no jobs for PMs, there's no jobs for anybody. And that was the reality. And I did think for a moment, the first month, I was like, I'm totally gonna bounce back. And I was even in a few interviews that I was like in the final stage, but I failed 2 interviews at the final stage. So during my notice, I was doing an interview process, and I was like, oh my God, it's going to be like great timing. Wow. I'm going to do the notice and then immediately, it barcode proper, belly flop. It was crazy.
Like,
yeah.
So funny.
Yeah, it was so crazy. And then so the first one drops, the second one drops, and now it's like no prospects, crickets. Like, LinkedIn is full of ghost jobs. You're doing that at easy apply. We have no idea where that stuff is going. You applied. I had a spreadsheet that had like 4 steps of application. So cover letter, the CV optimization for each specific role, date sent, expected date, follow-up email, like structured. And I just, like, from the last interview, when I got dropped from the last interview, it started there. It was like 1, 2, 3. I think I still have the sheet, and I think I stopped at like 1,250 or something.
Joking.
Yeah. No, I think I still have it. I think I might share it with you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Company, role, link, like that. And it was like, I just gave myself that goal, because all I was focusing right then was like, okay, how to not die first. And then no, I'm just genuinely grateful for like my parents and my partner, honestly, because the financial stress was a lot, and it's a real reality when, you know, that reality that they say you're one disease or one layoff away from like your life changing forever. It's so real. And so I just gave myself a goal, like 20 to 25. And some days the anxiety would be so crippling, I'd stay up at night and maybe do like 50 applications in a day. And this involves doing the CV, customizing the CV to whatever the role is saying. But luckily there was some ChatGPT. I think people were catching on. It was terrible back then. I think it was the model 1. It was so bad, but it was something. Yeah. Finding money to put the optimization tools, the CV optimization tools, pay a subscription for that. And, you know, you want a CV optimization tool that's like $50 in a month. You want to use that 50 as much as possible. Yeah. And so by the time it was like end of month 2, I think I was at like 600 applications, 2 responses. Wow. Yeah. Like, you know, I would see people talk about it on like TikTok, but then seeing the stats, the actual stats of what I'm doing. Crazy. Yeah. And you just have to keep doing it. You have to keep going. I started going for networking events. I started, you know, like I started doing the most, but then towards the 3rd month, now you're depleted. Now it's you against you. It's your side of pushing through and telling yourself it'll be worth it in the end, despite the data telling you differently. Yes. And you just being like, maybe I need to, you know, like what jobs that are not even in tech do I need to do? So the thing about me I appreciate with myself is I'm versatile. Like, I don't think there's any job too big or too small. Like me, I was just like, if things get bad, we downscale from our house. Like, I'm happy to work at a KFC or something. Like, life needs to keep moving. If the ecosystem has crashed and this process is not working at this time, so you have to start looking for operations roles. I even interviewed at a bank. I would always told myself, never doing that. Never do. I was like, but then now it's about survival. Now it was about survival. Now you don't even have a salary band. You're like, you guys are paying 300 G's. Cool. I can start yesterday. I can start right now. I'm ready. I need to wear doll shoes every day. It's cool.
fine.
Don't shoes. Na tule tu sweta tunafika hapa.
Official.
Regularly. Nitavaa. Tunaenda.
Wow.
Yeah, because I think life just keeps moving. Wow. Like you can't allow it to be that waiting for the perfect job.
It's so impressive because most people, how I think I'm working, I'm najituma niki work out. And then I come and I see what you're actually doing. I'm like, damn, I need to work harder. Many people would, at 200, they're like, Aki, I have done, wow. Me, I'm really applying.
Ati hakuna jobs.
Hakuna jobs. And it's so insane. It's like 1,200 given the person you are, and I'm saying that like the value you bring, that really challenges. It should challenge, I think, young techies to not like move from that. How do you call it? Entitlement. To 300. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting.
And somewhere in the middle, I got approached. A friend of mine referred me to a new founder who was looking for someone part-time, thinking about like Africa's Talking being like 9 years ago. I made more in my first job than the consultancy I was doing for that company for the whole month. Yeah, so I went down to, I guess, like 80K a month, and I was just doing that consultancy, and it was very absorbing, but it was like, yeah, it's something, and I'm super willing to do it. And had to go to the office sometimes. It was a product that we were just fleshing out the idea, and all in all, it ended up serving me really, really well, because it was like having worked with organizations like Food for Education, even Kasha before that were serving hundreds of thousands, and it was an established product. It was good to go down to working with a founder to conceptualize from scratch, because I had not done that in a really, really long time.
How did you manage your ego, if there was any? Because I would imagine someone like
it was a gratitude thing. It was really a gratitude thing. It was someone still wants me. and at the same time, like, I really believed in the founder, and I really believed that it could be a product that could scale. We were still fleshing it out. And it's also really good if you're in the middle of jobs. Productivity is something that's a survival skill, like doing stuff day to day, because again, you are conditioned to a system where your time is exchanged for money, your effort is exchanged for money. Now that part has been removed. How do you feel valuable as a human? How do you feel valuable and needed and wanted, which are things that come from having a job. Having a responsibility as a person is extremely important to what being a human is. Now you don't have any structures that are doing that for you.
So you were laid off. Take us through that day.
The day of the actual layoff. Okay, I had been having issues with my COO, who had, my CPO had gotten laid off too. And so I was reporting directly to my COO. And we were having a lot of issues with how he was communicating with me, how he was communicating with my team. I felt very... I kind of felt it coming. I feel like I was being a nuisance with how much I was giving feedback on how problematic he was. So I knew we were not on the same page. But I knew if layoffs were coming, I would probably be on the chopping block. But also, the organization was restructuring quite a lot, and I wasn't feeling very safe in my role. So I feel like if the layoff hadn't happened, eventually I would have still needed to be the one to like move out. But the layoffs happened. I just, it was on a Thursday. I saw a 15-minute in the afternoon on a Friday, 15 minutes before the close of day.
Yeah.
And it was me, him, and HR. So I kind of knew it, like, especially from my previous experience at like Microsoft and how the conversation went before the legal stuff. I knew it, because like even after I shared my experience with the Microsoft one, people were like, once you see that 15-minute call on a Friday, you just know. So I kind of knew it, and the HR at least handled it very gracefully and gave me a little bit of a heads up, and so yeah.
Oh
I went on the call and they said because of like budgets and restructuring and all of that, like 30-day notice. So I was completely fine with it. I was actually very confident that I was going to get a role within that 30 days. Like I was that confident. Then, as I mentioned, I had done so many applications and I had one in the work. And I was almost at the end stage of that interview process. And then I did the final interview, which actually ended up being in person. So the role was fully remote, but a member of their team was in Kenya and I met them and I was very optimistic. We really, really vibed. And then I guess a week later, they dropped me. They told me they found a candidate that was best suited for the role. So I had already invested a whole month into that. But mid that final 30 days, I also got into another interview process that was really, really intense because they were looking for a director level person. And I got to the final interview and again met the team in person because they were here for a summit. So they were oddly similar. And then they ghosted me. They just completely ghosted me after the final interview. Like they literally stopped. I even emailed people from their team and nobody responded. And this was after like 4 rounds of interviews for like a month and a half. I even gave them like a concept note for something. And I'm like, if you guys have used it, man.
Why not me?
Exactly. But I don't even think they hired for the role because like 2 years later or something earlier this year. No. Mid this year, I saw the same opening. So there's a lot of those jobs, by the way. There's a lot of ghost jobs. There's a lot of jobs that maybe the company has not fully decided the budget for that. They get you into an interview hoping that the budget will be passed and then it's not. But I really wish, like I think it's with ATSs, with applicant tracking systems, it's really easy to just send out rejections. I don't think there's any excuse for a company to not tell their candidates that they've not been selected or that they're no longer proceeding with them. I feel like that part was sloppy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you, before you tell us how you got your role in the 3rd month, talk to someone who's just been laid off. I've just been laid off. Oh my God.
Yeah. I'd say like take some time to be devastated, but not too long. Time box the devastation and the anxiety and the anger and eventually just lock in. Like if you feel like you need 2 weeks to just feel like crap, do it, but do not linger too long. Do not wallow too long. Do not wallow too long in the self-pity, in the feeling of this was unfair. I put so much time and effort into this. Feel it, experience the feeling, but don't dwell on it too long because you gotta lock in. Because getting a job is also very energy intensive. And you need to manage your energy. So on an energy management perspective, I think it's very important to time box how long you feel bad for yourself. And this doesn't mean that in the process of being the in-between jobs, you're not going to feel those feelings again. You just are deciding from that moment to not allow that feeling to be the primary feeling you're feeling. You still have to get excited for job possibilities. That excitement is that fuel that keeps you going, and you still have to remain optimistic, because the day that optimism dies, things get really, really bleak. Like you still need to be like, oh my God, I really feel like I can actually qualify for that job. And despite the rejection or the silence, you still need to allow yourself to feel excited about specific roles. It really makes a difference between somebody who's still looking forward to something versus somebody who's completely lost their hope in finding a job. And even energetically, you want to be the person who's attracting the positive, good vibes about the job. And then also, if you're able to find ways to be productive, like cost-effective ways, of course you're on a budget, things are crazy, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling down and everything, but I would say staying busy with something. Like, maybe you don't know how long you're going to be in that house, but like, do that closet revamp, like fold your clothes, clean the place, change the curtains, do stuff that makes you feel productive and valuable. Not as a distraction that you're like, oh, let me distract myself. But like, you need to still put yourself in a situation where you feel like you're adding value, that you're doing something for yourself or others. like I would even say, I think I spoke to somebody who had a similar experience and they decided to just volunteer. They decided to volunteer their time. They decided they needed somewhere to go every day. Wow. So then they started volunteering at a church. They just go and do something in their church for 2 hours, something to get them dressed, prepped, interact with people, go somewhere, just walk, like go do something that makes you feel productive and gives you a little bit of a purpose. And also, I would say, yes, managed to start a business during that time. But I would say starting a business during that time of the layoff can be very... You need a lot of emotional regulation, because if you put so much pressure on that business to start generating income so far, you could get frustrated. You could get really, really frustrated. So if you do find yourself having the capacity to start a project you haven't wanted, that you've been wanting to do that you haven't gotten time to, or you find yourself starting a business and getting the prospect of income, you have to still probably think of it as a long term. And if you're not hoping for it to be long term and you think you can make some quick money fast, that's also okay. But managing your expectations with whatever you start to do during that time is really, really important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
How did you get the job?
Surprisingly, my best friend went for a networking event for players in the healthcare industry and healthcare nonprofits, and met the founder of the current company that I work at. She's the co-founder. Her name is Alexa. She's so amazing. So I told her about the role, the engineering management role, and my best friend was like, yeah, I think I know the right person for that. She made that intro. Alexa reached out to me, did a couple of interviews, and met the team in Nairobi. So how crazy. The first two guys, I met their team in Nairobi on the final interview and they dropped me. But these guys, we met in Nairobi and they were like, yeah. And I feel like so blessed by the role. Yeah. Like it's probably like the most satisfying role that I've had so far.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but before taking it, I think there was another role that was popping up in the background, but it was more of a PM role. Mm-hmm. So there was a decision to be made there, like stick to this PM track that you've had for the past 10 years, or pivot. Okay. And take on EM. And I'm kind of glad I pivoted, because I think all of those skills have come full circle. Okay. Yeah.
A big congratulations.
Thank you.
Very, very big congratulations.
I think I'm hitting 8 months now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
For that, we have a special gift.
Yeah, Lily. Where are the Sisal dancers? Where are the people with the Sisal skirts? Thank you so much. They're so beautiful.
From us to you by Petali Flowers.
Thank you. Yes. They are so lovely, guys. Behold, they're so beautiful. Wow.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Being so vulnerable, being so honest.
Thank you so much.
Because it's helped. If it has not helped anyone, it has helped me.
I'm glad. Yes. One person, maybe Kevin in the camera too. Yeah. I don't know. But I'm really grateful for the platform. I told you I used to do this a lot more frequent, and I felt like this was a good platform to get back into it. Yeah, you're being so intentional with the preparation and everything. Really grateful.
Thank you so much.
Anytime.
So we're gonna close off.
Yeah.
With 2 fun questions.
Mm-hmm.
One, what's your unpopular opinion in the tech industry, careers?
I have so many. How do I decide? I don't want to be cancelled. I don't really care.
Yeah.
My unpopular opinion you know what? I'm actually logging through so many unpopular opinions.
Which one is decent to say?
Maybe what we were discussing before, which is the oversubscription of our millennial Gen Z population to the mental health, to the mental health industry. I really do believe that mental health is extremely valuable. It is very real, but I do think we need to open our eyes to the fact that just like any other industry, practitioners within that space could be over-prescribing mental health medication and diagnosing everybody with specific disorders. And I think it's good to seek out the help, but it's also good to do your research and go deeper and deeper into really understanding what this diagnosis means before tagging yourself with some of those diagnoses and those labels. I do think there's a little bit of, there needs to be more regulation with how mental health medication is being prescribed and how people are taking in this diagnosis and how it's affecting their lives. Yeah.
I really love how you question and you're curious about things.
It's my detriment.
No, I love it.
Thank you.
Finally, for the techies, I will always do this for you guys.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If I am looking at a career much like the one you've moved into product, you're now an EM, and an EM is primarily technical, right?
Yeah.
We will definitely put the description of what an EM does here because of time. What am I looking at in terms of dreaming, like salary range? What salary range are we looking at the peak of your PM career and now where you are?
I would say as an EM, I work in a unique space. The organization I work for is a nonprofit. It's a very small team, very distributed. We have a really, really good structure for how salaries are determined by location, inflation, and everything. And I think if your company is putting that level of intention in terms of like compensation, well-being, and is really, really careful about standardizing salaries across different locations, because the truth of the matter is at some point, an EM in Kenya and an EM in another place were making vastly different amounts. So I would say it also depends on the size of the team and the size of the organization. From the small network I have built during my time as an EM, I would say for EMs who are managing global teams with like more than like 5 people, I think you're looking at around $4,500 to $6,000 net, but I'm also a contractor, so I don't know about the standardization with the taxes and the deductions right now. So it could be around that range from what I'm hearing. For more bigger companies like the international companies, could be more. It could be all the way up to 8,000 based off of your experience, the product, and all of that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. And the peak PM, locally, I think it's so vast because there's a time I was leading a product team. I was making less than what I was making as a senior PM.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was doing the people management stuff also. So I would say also around the same, maybe between $3,500 to $4,500, somewhere in that range right now. For like a senior PM who's a technical manager locally. Yeah.
Okay.
No, senior PM who's a people manager locally. Yeah. So you have a team of PMs you're managing. You're managing the product also. Maybe your product is pretty local. I'd say around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to talk to engineering.
No, akiwa nimewaona. Nimewaona.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you. This was a fun time in general.
No, I'm not gonna say that. I've had such a beautiful time.
Same, and thank you for having me and keep running this platform. It's so valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We usually do this. I know you can't even. We do like a high five at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to high five the other hand, and we know why.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're done.